should be a priority because it's something that benefits everyone. First of all, I would say it benefits staff in their skills of giving feedback, and it does make a great difference for students who are on the receiving end, because even the slight wording of feedback can make really a difference between a student being empowered by it, even though it's not necessarily positive, and being demotivated and discouraged and feeling like a failure. So definitely I would say the tone is something that's very important, and it helps everyone at the end of the day, I would say, staff and students alike.
If feedback is thoughtful, consistent and empowering, it changes the feeling of a student of how he or she feels towards their work, which is very essential because it helps a student to develop from a student to a scholar.
I think, first of all, because degree level essays for any humanities subject, they're completely different to A levels or sixth form or any kind of college or school work. So that already takes getting used to. And second of all, I think the way students use feedback is to consistently grow in an upwards trajectory, and you can do that when you take feedback from an essay you've gotten back and you put it into motion in the next essay. So to have that kind of gradual improvement, which I've felt I've had through my marks when I've had really helpful feedback, I think that's what's most important, is to basically make sure the feedback kind of primes you for the next piece of work or the next assessment.
Often if I'm given a comment on one essay, it will kind of cause me to reevaluate how I approach learning going on. And so whilst you might often kind of differentiate between the value, the importance of teaching and the importance of giving feedback, I think they often feed into each other in a really important way. And so getting proper feedback, getting really helpful, incisive feedback can not only improve someone's writing, but also their ability to learn. And so that's why I would say it's that important.
Feedback is the thing that bridges the gap between students who have had a more difficult time in education, students who maybe haven't had that kind of upbringing or that opportunity to have education at really high standard before. And it's one of those things that bridges the gap between different groups of students. So for example, students who were privately educated who maybe started university with more expertise compared to students who didn't come from that background. It's bridging that gap and ensuring that every student has access to education and has access to doing as well as possible. I think there needs to be evidence of progression for students. So you need to see that a student coming from their first year is improving somewhat between first year and third year, because I think feedback is the thing that makes that difference. If students aren't getting adequate feedback, they don't know how to improve, and there should be a trajectory upwards. No matter how kind of tiny that might be, feedback should be the thing that facilitates getting better, which I just don't think it is at the moment. And I think students overwhelmingly report that the support they're getting isn't enabling them to improve. And if you're submitting pieces of work, it kind of feels like there's no point, because you kind of feel like you're just gonna, if you start off on a 2-2, you think you're always just gonna get a 2-2, because how are you supposed to improve? I understand that it's university, and I think a lot of people use that as kind of an excuse for why feedback isn't good enough. Obviously, students at university are expected to be more independent, and that makes sense, but being independent shouldn't mean being completely alone, and they should be given the tools that they need to succeed.
Part of why feedback provision improving should be a priority is projects like this, because in the few sessions I've been to, it's clear to see that students that go alongside me quite clearly want to give their opinions, and you can see them light up basically whenever they get the option to. And aside from that, because it dictates everything you do at university, I mean, you can't improve without good feedback, and the better the feedback is, the more you can improve and the better the result will be, which is good for both the student and the university.